If y'all take a look real close at the ground, you can see that there's a water. There's water on the ground, so I did get some rain today. Oh, I was actually considering taking animals to the sale barn, but I won't be able to load any animals up with the ground this wet. And so I was at the other property taking a look at the cattle that I got out there. And I think I have about 6 animals that are between 650 and 700 pounds. And the whole thing about the situation is that the whole thing about the business plan is that when the animal hits about 650 pounds, that is effectively when I have just about doubled my money. And when the animal hits about 800 pounds, that is when I have more or less made about 2.2 times on my money. So I make a little bit more than double when the animal's about 800, and I make just about double when the animal's about 650, and that's usually how it pans out. And so I have about 6 animals right now that are between 650 and 700, and they're all steers. All 6 of them are steers. I sold a bunch of heifers a couple weeks ago. 3 weeks ago or so, I sold a bunch of heifers. 4 weeks ago, I sold a bunch of heifers. And this time around, I'm gonna be selling a bunch of steers, and the steers are gonna be hitting the scales pretty hard, pretty heavy. They're gonna hit the scales pretty hard, so I'll be making a good bit of money on them. I was thinking about taking them to the market, but it started raining on me as I was thinking about that. And so, yep, I won't be taking them to the market. I am looking to expand my herd. That's the big idea with the whole, with everything that I got going on right now, is to start just expanding the size of my cattle herd. I got a lot of things squared away in the last 2 weeks. I got a lot of things squared away. I fixed up, I got about 120 acres completely cleared, and I fixed up the fence. I fixed up the fence on I fixed up the fence on the 2 fields that I will be using right this moment. I will be looking into expanding onto the 2 fields at right this moment. I got the fences completely fixed, and so I am currently looking to just grow the size of my herd. And so I figured something that I would talk about today that I guess, well, okay, here's my situation. And I mean this with the utmost sincerity, and it's whatever. I don't care. I'm not gonna say I don't care. It's just, it's whatever to me. The whole thing about my situation financially, if I had nothing, legitimately, if I had nothing, I could genuinely make myself a large amount of money. And in all honesty, money after a certain point, it doesn't really even do anything. If you, in a very honest way to look at this is, if you take a look at a lot of rich people, if you take a look at a lot of wealthy people, and I would bet that a majority of rich people and a majority of wealthy people would more or less think the way that I do. A lot of them, okay? A lot of them would think the way that I do. And, the money doesn't do anything after a certain point. And if there was something that I could do with the money that was morally responsible and it was morally good and it would benefit humanity and et cetera, then I would be willing to use the money for it. But there are things that money cannot do, okay? There are things that money cannot do. You cannot save people with money, all right? This is one of the things, you cannot save people with money. And I'm going to be just completely straightforward, honest about this. And, my whole situation, and I've even spoken about this in the past, but me, like, I legitimately wake up, go to work, and then work until I go to sleep. And I effectively work by myself all day, every day. And, like, I don't, and I'm completely okay. I don't know how else to put it. I am completely, like, I'm not depressed. I'm not sad. I'm not angry. I'm not desperate. I'm okay. And the whole thing about this is, when I say this, I'm not saying this to be malicious. I'm just saying it because I legitimately believe it. This is legitimately what I believe. And at the end of the day, it is the truth as far as I know. I am telling you the sincere truth. I don't want anything. Well, there, how do I put it to make the most sense? Oh, if everybody was a saint, I would go out of my way to help people. And here's the thing. Here's actually something I will talk about my life. The whole thing with everything that I got going on right now, I legitimately started myself my own business. I'm a multimillionaire. I legitimately started my own business. I managed to turn myself into a multimillionaire net worth. In all honesty, even with just the amount of money that I make right now, and just taking a look at it, in all honesty, even with just the amount of money that I make today, I could effectively buy anything on the entire planet. All right. Like, in all honesty, my business is probably worth somewhere between $5 and $7 million. I'm net excess cash flow, over $20,000 a month in just the next 3 months, in terms of the overall, because, and I've already spoken about this, the whole idea of investing money. When I have my own money, right? This is something that I talk about all the time. When I have my own money and I invest my own money into the deal, right? Then that money is not spent. That money is not spent. All right, that money is not, I did not buy anything. I invested my own capital. So let's say that I sell my animals, right? And I make enough money to buy 65 animals, right? And realistically, over the next 3 months, I will probably need, 1 or 2 tons of fertilizer, 2 or 3 tons of fertilizer. That's about $2,000, okay? And, so let's say, and I've even spoken about this in terms of how do I see it, right? Like, how do I see this whole situation? When I invest my own money, I do not consider it as it being spent. When I invest money, I do not consider it as money that is spent. I consider it like money that is put into a savings account. I think about it like I have something that is worth money, that is not money, but it is worth money. That's how I see it. For me to legitimately consider the money to be spent, I will have to leverage, well, not have to, reasonably, the way that I would consider the money to be spent is for me to leverage against the money. I would have to leverage against my own assets for me to consider the money as spent. But even then, and I've spoken about this, and I've even said it like 3 times in this video, when you invest money, I do not see investing money as spending money. The reason that I invest my money is to take the money and buy something that is as valuable as the money itself. And the reason that I do that is because when I invest the money will make me a return. That's why I do it. And, because at the end of the day, if I have money and it is sitting in an account, if I have a boatload of positive equity and it's just sitting there, that money is not doing anything. It doesn't do anything, right? And so that's my whole situation. That's how I see it. So when I legitimately, reinvest the money, and let's say that I end up with 65 animals. When I have 65 animals, and let's say that I've gone net positive 30 animals. I have 30 animals, and the positive equity evaluation is higher than that because those 30 animals will go up in value when I raise the animal, right? The whole thing about me utilizing, the whole thing about my deal, right? How did I structure my deal? How did I structure the deal of my business? The equity of the cattle is my money. That is my ownership stake. The cattle are my money, right? The cattle are my money. And so that's where I'm storing my wealth. The cattle are my wealth, right? And so when I take a look at it, when I invest money, granted that I do it properly, I've been speaking about this for the last couple of days. I believe that the market is entering delusional territory. The cattle market is entering la la land territory, and it's very dangerous. All right. I'm not saying don't invest into the cattle market. I'm just saying, think about the long term, okay? You know, I'm not saying don't invest into cattle. You can do whatever you want. It's a free country. I'm just giving you my own 2 cents, okay? And the whole thing about this is it just is what it is. I'm not saying this to be an arrogant prick. I legitimately made it, okay? And just in terms of money, all right, nobody is offering me anything. In terms of money, there is no, I don't care about I don't care, you know, money as of today, it's whatever to me. Nobody is going to pay me to do anything, all right? Nobody. It doesn't matter if it's $100 million. I don't care, all right? Take your deal, hold on to it real tight and throw yourself into a hole. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care. Nobody's paying me to do anything. If, you know, in terms of an honest, sincere, it just is what it is. I don't have a major spending problem. That's one of the big benefits about me. I don't have a major spending problem. I just don't have one. And I'm not saying I'm a saint. I'm not a saint. I don't go around saving people. I'll kick you into a hole if you're a malicious tard. All right? You know, the thing about it, you know, I don't save. I'm not a saint. I don't have a spending problem though. I'm very, very, very meticulous about the way that I utilize money. All right, I don't have a spending problem. That's one of my big benefits. You know, the whole thing about income, and why do I see income as kind of this arbitrary, ambiguous thing, right? Because a lot of times when people talk about things like income, it doesn't mean anything. All right, a lot of times when people talk about money, the reason that they're talking about the money that the way they are is because they are a massive pile of problems. At the end of the day, the only number that matters is what? From what I have seen, the only number that matters is the amount of money that is left over. That's it. That's all that matters. And just to put things in perspective, over the next 3 months, let's say that I just reasonably just reach all of my goals. Okay? Let's just say, you know, because here's the thing. Over, you know, in just the next month, I will have to liquidate about 6 animals, okay? And when I liquidate those 6 animals, I will probably have enough money to buy 12 animals and 2 loads of fertilizer and a load of grain. All right, I'll have enough money to buy like 10 animals, a load of grain, and a load of fertilizer, 2 loads of fertilizer. I'll have enough money to buy like 12 animals, okay? You know, with the 6, I'm going to be selling 6 steers. All right, I will be selling 6 steers that will weigh about 800 pounds in the next month. All right, and they look good. They're at a body conditioning score of about 6. All right, I have a lot of grass coming in. When I sell these 6 animals, you know, they'll hit the scale at about 800. And if they hit the scale at 800, I will make just over double the amount of money that I have put into the animal. Something like just about double, just over double. So if I put $1,300 into the animal, I'll probably make about, you know, $2,600. All right, you know, some of these animals, I did buy them a little bit bigger. I bought them at about $350. I just remembered that. But still, I will make a net profit of over, you know, and also the cattle market did go up pretty substantially. You know, the cattle market has effectively just been going up and to the right for like the last 2 years straight. And so, I'll be making just over double, okay? You know, I think I averaged, even the animals that I bought a little bit heavy, I paid like $1,300 an animal. And right now, an 800-pound number 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame steer selling for like $2,700. And so I'll still have enough money to buy like 11, 12 animals. I'll still have enough money to buy a load of grain. I'll still have enough money to buy 2 loads of fertilizer. Okay, a load of grain and 2 loads of fertilizer will cost me about $3,200, $3,400, something like that, $3,500. I'll be able to buy like 11. I'll sell 6. I'll buy 10, and I'll still buy a load of grain and 2 loads of fertilizer, and I'll probably still have some money left over. But here's the thing. If I sell 6 and I buy 10, and I do not use any leverage, right? If I sell 6 and I buy 10, then I am net positive 4 animals, right? And for me to legitimately consider that money to be used, I would leverage against the 4 animals. I would buy 16 animals. I would buy 14 animals. I would not buy 10 animals. If I sold 6, I would not buy 10. I would buy 14. All right? For me to consider the money to be used. Because if I'm only reinvesting my money and not using any debt, then that's like me taking my money and putting the money into a savings account. The animals are my store of wealth. And so when I take a look at this situation, if I go from, I realistically have enough money to buy a couple more animals right now, okay? Maybe 2 or 3 more animals. And so, realistically, I'm sitting at about 31, all right? 31, and if I go from 31 to 65, if I go from 31 to 65, 30 to 65, 30, whatever it may be, 30 to 60, and I am sitting on 30 animals that I bought extra from just taking the money that I make in the cattle business and putting the money back into the business. I was able to expand my herd by 30 animals. And those 30 animals, by the time I purchased them all, they went up in value because I took care of them. Granted that I purchased these animals, I purchased the right type of animals at the equitable evaluations. Right? The animal is worth an XYZ amount of money, and the XYZ amount of money is not the number that I just pulled out of my rear end. It's the number that is set by the commodity market. All right? So if I have 30 animals, realistically, I will have to take another loan for another 30 animals. And if I have 90 animals, and here's the thing, here's actually a very honest way to look at it. If I have 90 animals, and let's say that if I have 90 animals, I would be selling 15 animals every single month, right? And if I have 90 animals, and this would just be by the end of the year, think about how much money I would be making. I would be selling 15 animals every month. These animals sell on average for about $2,300-$2,400 if we include the heifers and the steers and the number 1.5 type cattle and whatever number. I got a couple of number 2 type cattle, etc., etc. If we consider it all, they sell for about $2,400 a piece. I would be selling 15 animals every month, and I would still have 75 cattle left at home. Those 90 cattle alone would be worth almost $200,000. Right? I mean, let's just be honest about it. And so, the way that I see it, it just is what it is, right? It just is what it is. And I've been talking about this, over the next 3 or 4 months. Realistically, in terms of a legitimate sense, I will probably end up doing more than 65 grand. Simply because if I have, but let's say it's 200 grand. And this is also what I said it was going to be 75 to 100 grand. And let's say that half of the money needs to go to the bank. Then half of the money is mine. Then I still have 100 grand, right? That's just in the next 3 months. All right. Over the last couple of weeks, over the last month or so, I did what I called cannibalizing the investment portfolio. And this is not exactly an ideal situation. This is not something that I would prefer to do. I do not like reducing the size of my herd to have access to capital. I do not like doing that, but I kind of entered a pickle. I entered a sticky situation, but also I entered a situation where I found a realistic opportunity to get myself about 375 acres of land. I saw a realistic opportunity to get myself 375 acres of land, and that is why I cannibalized my investment portfolio. That's what I call it, cannibalizing the investment portfolio. But effectively, I lowered the principal. I reduced the size of my herd so that I could have access to money. That's what I did, all right? And I used the money to square away all of the properties, effectively, except for the 200-acre, except for the giant field. But I will work on that when I need it, all right? When I need the property, I will get out there and I will just go ham. I will just hit the thing as hard as possible, and I will get it done ASAP. But I don't need that field exactly right at this moment. I have another 125 acres. I got another 50 acres that all I have to do is fix up the fence on one side. So that gives me 175 acres. And I got these, I got the 10.5 acres here too. It's effectively about 190 acres. I got about 190 acres that I can work on today. Right this moment, I will clear up the other 185. As soon as I need it, I will go out there and I will hit the thing as hard as possible, and I will get it done. But I had to shrink the size of I chose to reduce the size of my herd so that I could utilize the equity that I have stored in the animals as capital to square myself away, to prepare myself for an expansion, a very rapid expansion. And just to put things in perspective, just to put things in perspective, my money in the deal will be, my money in the deal will be about 100 grand here within about 3 or 4 months. That's what I've been saying. It will be about 75 to 100 grand. And if I leverage against it, then, if I leverage against it, then I will tell you when I take leverage. If I take leverage, I will tell you that I took leverage, okay? I will tell you that I took leverage. My money in the deal will be somewhere around $75,000 and $100,000 in the next 3 or 4 months, okay? That is the honest. If anything changes, I will say so. But with all honesty, that is realistically what is going to happen, okay? That is realistically what is going to happen. And so, but that was something that did happen. I did reduce the size of my herd so that I could have access to capital, but I utilized the capital in a way to expand my business more rapidly. I have prepared myself to expand my business very rapidly. All right. I will probably end up, over, $1 million liquid in just 8 or 9 months. All right. It's going to happen very quickly. I got myself about 400 acres of land squared away today. All right. Half of it is good to go. And the other half, when it comes down to it, I will get out there. And, if I'm selling, if I have one animal an acre, that would be on 200 acres. That would be 200 animals, right? And if I have 200 animals and I'm raising them for, 8 months apiece, that that means, what's 200 divided by 8? Now, I don't even know what that is. What's a 20 times that? That would be 160. And this would also be me. I would be selling animals at like 900 pounds. So let's say 7. So if I have 7, and let's just say I have 210 animals. If I have 210 animals, that means I would be selling 30 animals every single month. And I would still have 180 animals left over. And when I have a large excess of capital, I will go out there and I will clear that 200 acres as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. All right. I believe that I could realistically do it for about 20-25 grand. That's what I reasonably budget for it. Even with the herbicide, being cheaper, it was still, I would still be willing to almost bet that it's going to be somewhere around 20-25 grand. And also, I do have to fix up all of the cross fencing. So we're going to be talking about maybe 25-30 grand. All right. But if I'm selling 30 animals a month and I have a reservoir of money that is 180 cattle, right? That would be like me making, $70,000 a month and still having $400,000 that I'm sitting on, right? That would effectively be what the numbers are. I wouldn't care if I was making $70,000 a month and I had $400,000 of liquid cash just sitting there. I don't care about 30 grand. All right. If that 30 grand will allow me to double the size of my business, then I will just pay the 30 grand. I'm not even going to ask the landlord. I'm not going to even ask the owner of the land to reimburse me. I don't care about 30 grand. All right. If it costs me 30 grand to double the size of my business, then I will just fork up the 30 grand. I don't care about 30 grand. All right. And so, even right now, I don't care about 30 grand, but why would I go and spend 30 grand on that property when I can spend the 30 grand on my cattle herd and expand out to the 200 acres that I have already prepared, right? Why would I do that? I would rather just, go out on the 200 acres that I have prepared, right? I've already got 200 acres squared away. I'm just going to expand the animals to that first. And realistically, once I've done that, I will be generating a large amount of capital, a large amount of money, and then I can just clear the 200 acres very quickly. All right, I can clear the 200 acres very quickly. But that's very, in terms of the money that is in the deal for me, over the next 3-4 months, it will be somewhere between 75 and 100 grand. That's how much money I will have, made in the deal for myself. All right, it will be about 75, 100 grand. And realistically, and the effects of compounding, right? I've been talking about this, the effects of compounding. I started this business on a 10.5 acre field by myself, legitimately, with nothing. Effectively, not with nothing, with zero cattle. I legitimately started this business by myself. And I managed to grow this business by 1,000% in 3 years. And I am looking to grow my business by another 1,000% over the next 3 years. Realistically, I will be doubling the size of my business in just the next 3 to 4 months. Very realistically, that's what will be happening. All right. And, the whole thing about, and that's what I realistically have going on. All right. The compounding effects are becoming very drastic. The compounding effect is becoming very drastic. I will legitimately, as of right now, the amount of money that I'm making for myself at the end of the day is about, $35,000 a month. All right. That's how much money I am making for myself at the end of the day. Going net positive. That's how much money I will be making when it's all said and done. All right. Because I will be growing the size of my herd, but even when I grow the size of my herd, I will still have animals, right? I'm not going to be liquidating all of my animals at the same time, right? So I will still have animals. Even if I sell 6 animals, I still have 22 animals left over. Those 22 animals, they look like this. They're all effectively stabilized, good to go, going up in value. Reasonably, I anticipate that these animals will be profitable for XYZ amount of time. And during that time period, I believe that they will go up in value by ABC amount, right? They're putting on probably close to about 3 pounds a day. I have grass that will be coming in very soon. The grass is probably going to start growing in pretty quickly, starting about today. The weather's starting to cool. When it starts to cool, I end up getting a lot of rain. All right. And when I grow grass, I'm very good at it. All right. I am set to make a drastic amount of money. And this is also, it just is what it is. I'm not, and if it makes me sound like a prick, then, so be it. I don't care. I'm not a malicious person. At the end of the day, the average person is effectively a complete moron. All right. And I'm not saying this I'm not malicious about it. You would think that, the level of idiocy is almost remarkable. Okay. I fell out of heaven at 7. My life's a magical journey. I'm going to go and throw a Hail Mary into the middle of nowhere. And my opinions are important. And I want to be validated. All right. That's, a lot of problems for the average person, and then you got, the liar, the person who lies, steals, and thinks highly of themselves. Right. You got I fell out of heaven at 7 and my life's a magical journey. Throw a Hail Mary into the middle of nowhere. I was born with the answer. And then you got, my life is, I fell out of heaven at 7, lie, steal, scheme, a malicious person, right? And I've always said that, if you actually, took a very close look at what poor people think about, if you take a very close look at what poor people think about, a lot of times it's, completely messed up stuff. Like legitimately, like malicious, messed up stuff. Legitimately, a lot of times it is. All right, it's like if you're stealing and you're lying, why would and you have nothing to show for it? Why do you think highly of yourself? Why do you think you're a saint? And why do you see yourself as this, like this wonderful person? A lot of times, like if you legitimately take a very hard look at what poor people think about, it's usually very messed up stuff. Legitimately, very messed up stuff. Like me, I've always, like, if you, like, just take a look at the stuff that I think about. All right, take a look at some of the stuff that I think about. If you're born average, you have the capacity to do this. You can do 98% of this if you are born average. All right, which is effectively everybody. All right, I'm not a saint. I don't go around saving people. I want to see more people successful. In terms of a realistic sense, I don't know anybody else that has made it. In my organic life, in my legitimate, just me going out into the world, I don't know anybody else that has made it. Not a single person. All right, I effectively make more money than effectively anybody on the entire planet. Honest to God, nobody is paying me to do jack squat. All right, if you think that you can offer me a deal, you can't. I guarantee it, I don't care. Take your deal and throw yourself into a hole. It doesn't mean anything to me. Trust me, I want nothing to do with it. I'm perfectly, I'm perfectly okay with just working on my own business, all right? Perfectly okay with it. I don't, my business is not for sale. You're not buying any portion of my business. I don't want anything. Nobody is offering me money to do anything. Nobody. Trust me, I don't care. All right, the money is whatever. Money, you can always make more money. All right, I'm not selling portions of my business. I'm nothing, all right? I don't, it's nobody's paying me to do anything, all right? I guarantee it. I make plenty of money, all right? I make plenty of money and if I wanted a loan, if I legitimately was looking for more capital, if I was looking for a loan, I would go to the bank, you idiot. I would just go to the bank and take a loan. Why would I go and ask a bunch of why would I look for money from a bunch of idiots? Because when I go to the bank, my whole thing about business is that the reason that I like business, the reason that I love business is because there is a set contract. You do this, I do this. Let's make a deal on it. Right? I will lend you the money at 7% interest. And if I borrow $100,000 at 7% interest, what am I paying for that loan? I'm paying $7,000 a year. That's it. If I go and borrow $1 million at 7% interest, what am I paying for that $1 million? $70,000 a year. That's it. And I love that about the bank. I honestly love that about the bank. It's not like, oh my God, well, I want to be your buddy, pal, and we're going to go on a magical journey together and let's throw a Hail Mary into the middle of nowhere. It's, I will lend you this amount of money if you pay this much interest, and as long as you do that, then nobody's going to, then there's a legal contract. All right? And we shake on it and we sign the paperwork. I love that about the bank. I don't want to be anybody's friend. I don't care if you died. Every single last one of you. I don't care if all of you could drop dead. I'm not going to go and sneak into your room at night and shoot you in the head. But I don't care if you died. All right? Honest to God, I don't. I'm not a malicious person. I'm not going to go out of my way. I don't hope you die, but I don't care if you die. All right? I'm not going to hope that you die. I don't want you to die, but I don't care if you do. All right? At the end of the day, success is a one-man journey. Nobody's paying me to do anything. If I legitimately felt like I needed money, I would go to the bank. My business is not for sale. Nobody's paying me to do anything. All right? I don't want anything, to do with your worthless deal. I guarantee it. Take your deal, hold on to it, and throw yourself into a hole. I don't want anything to do with it. If I legitimately want money, I'll go to the bank. All right? And I make plenty of money. I'm not worried about money. Money is whatever to me. It's whatever. I can always make more money. Even if I had nothing, I could make money, all right? And it's whatever. And I don't have a spending problem. That's also one of the big benefits about me. I don't have a spending problem. I just don't. I understand that I make a large amount of money. And, the only thing that I'm honestly going to do with it is grow my business, okay? That's honestly all I'm going to do with it. If anything changes, I will say so.